A colorful celebration of love and inclusion. The Pride Toronto March, among the biggest in the world, took over the streets of downtown today. Good evening, I'm Marivelle Tarouk. Large crowds came out for the iconic tradition to celebrate for themselves, but also for those who fought and continue to fight for LGBT rights. Our Kelda Yoon was at the Pride Parade and caught up with some revelers.
It's a parade that gets bigger every year, and like every year, people came with one main message.
Love is love no matter what.
To get to this place actually is an incredible feat. We really feel supported by our city, by Toronto, but we also feel supported by the country.
Just celebrating sort of who we are and what we are, and I think it's fantastic.
Just to see everyone so happy. You don't see that often now.
Some have been participating for years.
I was in the gay parade since I was, 16, 17, 18.
The one day of the year that you don't get judged for who you are or what you do.
Others came as allies.
I have a ton of friends and family in the Pride community, and so it's just nice to be able to help represent them.
She wanted to go, and I am supportive.
Dylan Waith brought his daughter.
Personally, I feel like love who you love. It doesn't matter what anyone else says, and I want to raise my daughter to be just like that.
And Leslie Waitson brought her group of friends to give out mom hugs to those rejected by family.
We can't imagine what that's like. No one should miss out on hugs and love from their family because they're living the life that they were born to lead.
The parade marks the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots in New York City, which have been credited as the birth of the gay rights movement.
Marsha P. Johnson, who was, known for throwing that brick or that stone or whatever it was. We celebrate her like, she's the Rosa Parks of our movement.
And there's no ignoring, for the third year in a row, uniformed police did not march, as Toronto police and Pride organizers continue working to restore trust.
I've been trying hard with the police chief and with Olivia Numa and with others to try and bridge that gap, and sometimes it's hard to determine exactly what the gap is.
There are real institutional problems around what it means to keep the LGBTQ2+ community safe. And until we deal with those institutional problems that were birthed with the organization itself, it will take a generation to see that turn. But in that time, what we're saying is we're going to work hard, move in that direction, but parading and making real change, two different things.
And today, the parade takes center stage, a showcase of how far the LGBT community has come and a symbol of how far there is still to go.
It's Pride! Happy Pride!
Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Another sign of how much more still needs to be done: heightened security all along the parade route. It comes after a fight broke out at another Pride event earlier this week. Talia Ricci explains.
It was all sunshine and rainbows in Toronto today, as thousands lined the streets dancing and cheering.
One time of the year when everyone just comes together and just shows their true color and be whatever they want to be.
Quietly, extra security kept a watchful eye, both on rooftops and along the route.
We just want to make sure that it's clear to those who would seem to thwart our celebration of queer and LGBT pride to ensure their safety and the safety of our participants.
This after a fight at the nearby Hamilton Pride Festival last week, resulting in several injuries. Their organizers say the protest was led by religious leaders from the United States and Canada, who intentionally came to hatefully disrupt the event.
We're actually from Hamilton, and that definitely did not deter us from coming out. We feel more enthusiastic about showing our support.
Everyone has their beliefs, and everyone's entitled to their beliefs, but if your belief involves hating someone else, that's not right, in my opinion.
But it is real in this country. In 2017, there were 204 hate crimes motivated by sexual orientation reported to police. That's up 16% from the year before. One of the reasons some people still consider this parade a protest.
I think if we just come from a place of inclusivity and just enjoy together, we'll get there eventually.
Highlighting the importance of the Pride Parade, a message echoed by our Prime Minister.
I think it's important, not just for everyone who's out here today celebrating, for people who are at home. Young people especially who are still worried about coming out, still worried about their communities.
Despite the concerns, Pride organizers tell us there were no incidents at this year's parade, nothing that could dampen this party atmosphere. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, Pride festivities are one way people in this city enjoyed the weekend's sunshine, but a surefire sign summer is here. The sheer number of events now taking over Toronto and the amount of people out to enjoy them. Taylor Simmons has a wrap on how the city spent the weekend.
This is a rusty old coyote trap, and this is the danger.
It must be magic.
It has been really, really hot outside.
Can't complain about today.
Summer is finally here. The warm weather brought out everyone in their Sunday best, ready to take advantage.
I've been being outside and riding bikes, going to the pool, and hanging out with my mom. We've took 200 pictures.
Of course, with warm weather, a treat is never far away.
I'm eating a lime and lemon ice cream.
Delicious.
A beaver tail that is Oreo flavored.
Nearby, some different kinds of treats circulated at Toronto's Craft Beer Festival.
I got some maple bacon whiskey.
I am drinking the Radler.
We don't usually anticipate a huge crowd for Sundays, but we got one.
Meaning attendees ran into a dilemma.
Most of the breweries are running out of beer.
So, on to our next stop then.
Music brings us all together.
Yorkville jazzed up their day with the annual Jazz Fest.
So we spend 11 months of the year planning for the festival, and then we sort of put it out there and say, I hope it doesn't rain. And so I think, especially with the spring that we had in Toronto, everyone's so happy to be outside.
True for the dozens taking in the Indigenous Arts Festival in Fort York. And the singers closing out the annual Luminato Festival with sunset songs. But enjoy the warm weather now, because although the temperature is up, for some, the optimism is still low.
We have a summer today. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe snow. I hope so not.
Cross your fingers. As of now, we're in for another glorious weekend coming up, just in time for Canada Day. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
And just in time, here's Amanda Weldon to tell us if we can enjoy more of this glorious summer weather that we've enjoyed this weekend, Amanda.
Ooh, Maribel, it is good being in the weather business on a weekend like that.
Yes, and thank you, because we never say thank you when the weather's this great. So thank you.
No, we usually just complain, but you know what? Nothing to complain about. Monday, 17 degrees. We are waking up with our coffees on the patio. That's not too bad, right? So I want to actually set the scene this time, Maribel. This is our Toronto Almanac. So average temperature around this time of year, you can put it in your head, 24.8 degrees. Highest temperature we've ever seen on that day was around 32, but we do have a system moving on in. So we clinched the sunshine just in time for the weekend. That is moving out slightly. That's our radar return of our future radar, and then extending into areas like Toronto, a warm front, and that's going to bring some showers for Monday. Back to the work week, but that's okay. Sometimes the sunshine's distracting from the work. So we are getting back into actually some thunderstorms in the forecast for the extreme southwest, Windsor, Sarnia, London. That's where the target will be for some more severe storms. And we are seeing by that future radar, it's going to be the overnight hours into Monday morning where some of those showers will be. For Toronto, more likely embedded thunderstorms for you.
Okay, we'll check in with you later for the long range. Thanks, Amanda.
Sounds good.
Air Canada is looking into how crew members could have left a plane without noticing a sleeping passenger still on board. The incident was described in a Facebook post where the woman said she woke up all alone in a cold, dark aircraft after a flight to Toronto earlier this month. The woman was able to unbolt the cabin door, facing a steep drop to the tarmac. After calling over a ground crew employee, she was able to make it out of the plane. Air Canada confirmed the incident took place, but had no further comment on how the passenger was left behind. On this day in 1985, the worst terror attack in Canada's history took place. 34 years later, those who lost family members in the Air India crash struggle to keep that memory alive.
People have forgotten
that the largest tragedy in Canada in peacetime took place on this day. It's very important to remember and do our best to remind those who can listen that a country like Canada was changed on this day.
A handful of families gather every year on this day in front of Queen's Park for a memorial. 329 people were killed, including 280 Canadians, when Air India Flight 182 was bombed. Investigators recovered the shattered pieces of the blown-up plane over the Irish coast on its way to India from Canada. The attack was planned by a group of BC Sikh separatists led by a preacher named Talwinder Singh Parmar. The body of a Canadian soldier who died in a parachute exercise in Bulgaria is back home. Bombardier Patrick Labry's coffin arrived at Ottawa Airport. His family, commanding officer, and Defence Minister Harjit Sajjan were there. Patrick Labry was from Buckingham, Quebec, near Ottawa. He was killed this week during a training jump from low altitude. The military is investigating Labry's death. At least 3 other soldiers were injured in the U.S.-led exercise, including 2 Americans. The Defense Department says those came in separate incidents. The Special Investigations Unit is looking into a fatal crash in Scarborough that left 1 man dead and a woman in serious condition. It happened at around 7 p.m. on Saturday at the intersection of Scarborough Golf Club and Lawrence. The SIU said police were following a vehicle in the plaza parking lot. When the vehicle left, it struck the vehicle of the 77-year-old man and 74-year-old woman. The SIU have not released any information about the suspect. The agency investigates events involving the police that result in death, serious injuries, or reports of sexual assault.
Well, there's always an end to everything, so eventually have to pack up. It's bittersweet, of course, looking forward to going back home, seeing my friends and family.
He's coming home. Canadian astronaut David Saint-Jacques is set to touch down tomorrow after 6 months in space. What will all those months in zero gravity do to his body? We'll find out after the break. As Pride celebrations took over Toronto today, hundreds of thousands also took to the streets of Sao Paulo, Brazil to celebrate. But this year, there was an extra focus. New far-right President Jair Bolsonaro, who once described himself as a proud homophobe. Along with the giant pride flag, there were calls to confront the new conservative wave and for Bolsonaro to leave office. His opponents say his homophobic rhetoric serves to encourage anti-gay violence. Activists say so far this year, 140 homosexuals in Brazil have either been killed or committed suicide. Donald Trump's economic plan for an Israeli-Palestinian peace drew widespread scorn in the Arab world today. Trump's plan envisages billions in investment and only after that, a political settlement. Today, the Palestinian finance minister called that sequence unrealistic. Many Arab commentators are echoing that assessment, describing the plan as a waste of time. It is expected to be formally unveiled this week at a conference in Bahrain.
Neither Iran nor any other hostile actor should mistake U.S. prudence and discretion for weakness.
And Trump's national security advisor issued a warning to Iran just days after Trump says he called off a military strike against the country. John Bolton was in Jerusalem to meet with Israel's prime minister. Trump says a strike was planned in retaliation for Iran taking down a U.S. drone, but says he called the attack off because there would be too many deaths. There are reports the U.S. did launch a cyber attack on Iran's weapons system. New U.S. sanctions will be imposed on Tehran tomorrow. Here at home, the Senate has risen for the summer. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had promised to make the Red Chamber less partisan. With elections a few months away, Olivia Stefanovich looks at whether that worked.
A centuries-old tradition being shaped by modern reforms.
May it please Your Excellency.
33 bills have been adopted this session with at least one amendment, a record in recent history, brought on at the same time as the Red Chamber has seen an increase of independent senators. 5 years ago, before he became Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau expelled every single Liberal member of the upper house. Since forming government, Trudeau has introduced a system to appoint independent senators, recommended by a non-partisan review panel. But not everyone thinks that's for the better.
I personally have termed it Trudeau's fake independent Senate.
Conservative senators accuse Trudeau of appointing Liberals masked as independents.
When it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's likely a duck.
For example, they point to the debate around a bill that would ban oil tankers from a portion of the BC coast. It narrowly passed by only 3 votes this week. Every Conservative senator voted against it.
In Her Majesty's name,
the face of sober second thought is undeniably changing. Nearly half of senators are now female, a dozen Indigenous. But even the small number who consider themselves liberal have concerns about the role of independents passing legislation.
Typically, when you have a group, you kind of all know what you're doing.
The government representative in the Senate acknowledges there's more work to be done.
This is the first parliament that has had as its objective less partisan, more independent behavior.
But the question is, how much longer will the objective of having an independent Senate last? Not long if Conservative leader Andrew Scheer has his way. Scheer says he will abandon the notion if his party wins in the fall. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canadian astronaut David Saint-Jacques is coming home. After 6 months on board the International Space Station and after setting a Canadian endurance record for days in space, his descent module touches down in Kazakhstan tomorrow. The CBC's Chris Brown reports.
Canadian astronaut David Saint-Jacques began his space mission 6 months ago, blasting off from central Kazakhstan, and he's going to be coming back to Earth not too far from where he launched. We're in the city of Karaganda. It's actually about 500 kilometers or so from his touchdown spot, but this is a main area where they're basically marshalling and choreographing a fairly elaborate recovery mission to bring him back to Earth and then to send him back to the United States. His official re-entry time where he touches down is at about 10 minutes to 10 Eastern time on Monday night. In the meantime, he, along with Commander Oleg Kononenko and the other person in the capsule, American Anne McLean, are going to be fine-tuning all of their procedures, double-checking their equipment, and just making sure that touchdown spot is where it should be. We talked to David Saint-Jacques' doctor not too long ago about exactly how he's going to feel when the forces of gravity start to affect him after 6 months in space.
He will feel super heavy. As soon as the G's hit, once he starts coming into the atmosphere, when the Soyuz brakes, he will feel really heavy because he hasn't felt that heaviness, the G's, at all for 6 months. So just lifting his arm will be very, very difficult. And walking will be even more difficult. It'll take a few days until he starts realizing he can't just put something in front of him and just expect it to be there.
I was talking to Canadian astronaut Bob Thirsk as well. He came down from the International Space Station 10 years ago in a Soyuz, and he described it to me as being, well, imagine the wildest amusement park ride you can, and then multiply it by 10. It is dangerous, but Russia has not had an accident with its space program on re-entry now in over 40 years. Saint-Jacques has been doing all kinds of medical experiments in space. He's conducted a spacewalk, and he's also welcomed the newest unmanned version of the Dragon crew capsule as well. But we are into the final hours now of Canada's mission in space, and it is promising to be one of the most challenging parts of the mission, the re-entry of David Saint-Jacques. Chris Brown, CBC News in Karaganda, Kazakhstan.
Nope, nothing wrong with your eyes. That is indeed Toronto Raptors head coach Nick Nurse on stage playing a guitar. Possible career change? Find out after the break. Stay or go, it doesn't matter anymore because Toronto will always have a Kawhi Leonard. He may not be able to play basketball, but this blanding turtle was named after the star player. The Toronto Zoo released the endangered animals into the wild, naming a handful of them after Raptors superstars. This is Kyle Lowry. And this is Fred VanVleet. He does look kind of steady. And there's Masai. And of course, here we have Nick Nurse. So cute. And the real Nick Nurse is showing he can do much more than win a championship. The coach joined the Arkells during their sold-out show at Budweiser Stage. The Hamilton-based band and longtime Raptors fans offered Nurse a guitar solo at one of their shows after the Raptors took the NBA championship. Coach Nurse joined the band to play Stevie Wonder's hit, Signed, Sealed, Delivered. And of course, the fans could not be happier. Multi-talented, wouldn't you say, Amanda?
So talented. And at the last Arkell show, they called out Kyle Dubas, too. So it seems as though they are definitely Toronto sports fans. Maribel, are you a fan of the Heat this weekend?
You know what? After the spring we had, Amanda, bring it on. Let's get it.
Let's get it. Okay, Monday afternoon, 22 degrees. The thing that is coming back, though, is the humidex value. So a reminder to you, drink the water for sure and make sure you're prepared. I'm sure a lot of us got a pretty good sunburn this weekend. Monday evening, that's where you see the thunderstorm risk and the thunderstorm potential built into our forecast. Just taking a look at a couple of different cities and the 3-day out perspective, the heat is definitely there. Yeah, the heat lives here. Wednesday, 27 degrees for Toronto. It's going to feel like 33, okay? So humidex values, if you do have troubles breathing, maybe plan ahead and go to an air-conditioned area in the mall. Usually we say mosey around in those scenarios. We're also talking about thunderstorm risks. So not only the risk with heat, never leave a child or a dog or a pet or anything in a car in these scenarios, but also when thunder roars, go indoors. Those are our 2 safety pieces of advice for you. With that warm front cutting on through for Monday, it's the afternoon and the evening that will bring that risk for thunderstorms. And I will say, if you're lingering on the idea, is this heat here to stay? Well, here's a look at the temperature trend that is going to be taking place. The feels like into the 30s. We are finally there, and I will finally just leave you here with our 7-day forecast. Again, feeling into the 30s.
I can get behind a humidex right now. Thanks, Amanda.
No problem.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. Before we go, we're going to leave you with some Pride celebrations from all around the world. You can stay caught up on news anytime on our website, cbcnews.ca. Have yourselves a great night, everyone.